preseason games start this week. I can't believe how close we are to the season.
Right about now, the Funk Soul Brother. Check it out now, the Funk Soul Brother. Right about now, the Funk Soul Brother. Check it out now, the Funk Soul Brother. Right about now, the Funk Soul Brother. Check it out now, the Funk Soul Brother. Right about now, the Funk Soul Brother. Right about now, about now, about now, about now.
What's popping, y'all? It's your man Cloutboy Bells, and just welcome to an episode of Wisco Sports. Hope you guys liked my new intro. I just made it today. Got nothing else to do, but I figured to start of the new NFL season, I figured I needed a new intro. Wisconsin sports has just been having a great year as always, and honestly, this is just, I felt like the old one was kind of corny, so I just decided I'll make a new one. But anyways, going on to my video today, preseason pretty much starts soon, so I figured before the season starts, I'm probably going to make some videos talking about my thoughts on teams and where I stand with things, and then that, and then, that, I don't know, it's going to be interesting what happens, but I'm going to look at each team and do a deep analysis on them, and, I don't know, but we'll see. But anyways, let's just look at this. So anyways, we have the top tier being the Super Bowl contender. Then we have the playoff team. We have middle of the pack. And then maybe a few wins. And then might go 0-16. I just was looking at tiers and I was like, okay, this one I could definitely look at and say, oh, this really is a good. So I'm just going to go over each of the 32 NFL teams, and I'll just decide where I want to put each of them. Hopefully I don't go too long with explaining, but honestly, it's going to be interesting what happens. So anyways, let's start off with the Seattle Seahawks. I think their time has completely slipped away. Regardless, Russell Wilson is pretty phenomenal, and they always do great things, but Seattle, they just slip away whenever they do. I mean, they're a playoff team. They always will be a playoff team, but the problem is they'll never win. I didn't see that they'll ever win a Super Bowl. I think the time has slipped away from Seattle. Next up, Indianapolis Colts. Losing Carson Wentz at the start of the season, he could be back. It's very possible. They haven't ruled him out week 1 yet, but starting a season out without Carson Wentz, I mean, the Colts have a great running game, which is the product of their team, but having a quarterback with experience, I think, is definitely going to boost their confidence. So with that, I think the Colts, they're not a few-win team, and they're not a bad team. They're a very good team. They didn't do many things in the offseason. They are exactly the same. Getting Carson Wentz was just, I could say it's a downgrade for Phillip Rivers, but it's whatever. So in my eyes, I see the Colts being the middle of the pack. Next up, the Steelers. Now, with Big Ben Roethlisberger, he's not aging. He's still playing, and it's pretty crazy that he's still doing it. But the Steelers are they were an embarrassment in the playoffs last year. And, as much as I hate to say it, losing a lot of the guys like Marquise Pouncey and a lot of guys in defense, and it's pretty much going to fall over, and pretty soon we're going to be seeing the rollover of the new age of the time. But because Mike Tomlin's a great coach, I can't not put them under playoff team, because first off, I mean, the Steelers are veterans and they know what they're doing. So if they have a bad season, then they could be in the middle of the pack. But as of now, they made the playoffs last year, and I don't see how they don't do that again. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons. This is a team that's just going to get a few wins. They are going to pretty much be rebuilding pretty soon, and there's nothing really else I'm going to say about that. But this is a team that's going to be rebuilding pretty soon. San Francisco 49ers. This really depends on if the team stays healthy. 2 years ago, they were undefeated. Last year, they lost everybody, and they just had a bad season. They drafted Trey Lance. Maybe that's going to boost their offense up, but I don't know what's going to happen as of right now. 49ers right now are just at the middle of the pack. I don't really see them, because of how good their division is, I just don't see them, being the team that, I don't know. Next up, New York Jets. This is a team that's very young, so I'm going to say maybe a few wins. Maybe Zach Wilson ends up being a stud. I can't say 0-16 because they definitely were one of the top 3 teams that probably had a phenomenal offseason, so they're going to win more games. I mean, you can't not say that. Obviously, 0-17 is now the thing. Buffalo Bills. This is the first team that I consider to be Super Bowl contenders. Yes, so anyways, Buffalo, Josh Allen, I believe will probably win the MVP this year. He is my prediction to win the MVP this year. I think it's really all up to him. That's honestly what I look at it as. Next up, Arizona Cardinals. They always seem to be a playoff team with good contention. But right now, I don't know if J.J. Watt made them improve. They have a great offense, and I think their defense struggles, which is why they could be making the playoffs or in the middle of the pack. I don't see them as, I feel like if they make the playoffs, they'll be eliminated week 1. Doesn't matter who they're playing, so I'm not really that scared of but the Cardinals do scare me because they have potential to be good. Next up, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to put them under a few wins category. They could be middle of the pack, but to be honest, the Eagles, they just need to rebuild. It's going to take them a couple years. We all know that, but I'm not sure what's going to happen at this point. Next up, New Orleans Saints. They're going to be middle of the pack. It really depends on if Jameis Winston can actually play a lot better. Or Taysom Hill. It really depends. I don't know who's going to start at quarterback. But with Drew Brees, you need someone to replace him, and that's going to be really hard to do. Next up, we have the New England Patriots. I'm going to say middle of the pack as well. I feel like at some point in the season, Cam Newton's not going to be enough, and they're going to move on to Mac Jones, and they'll actually do pretty well. So that's my prediction for the Patriots season. They're not going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to rebuild, and they're going to do really well. Next up, Chargers. I put them in the same category, middle of the pack. One of the worst defenses, but another outstanding year by, of course, other than Justin Herbert. Expecting a lot. Next up, Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals, of course, it's going to be tough because they're in one of the toughest divisions, and by far, I feel bad for Joe Burrow. It's not going to be enough. Just no offense. Next up, Chicago Bears. I don't know where to put them because it really depends on if Justin Fields plays, and no one knows if Justin Fields is going to be a bust or if he ends up being a star quarterback. So I'm going to put them right in the middle because if Justin Fields ends up being a star, then I'd absolutely put them in the playoff contention. But right now, they're just in the middle of the pack. Could I see them making the playoffs? Absolutely, if they are good. But they have a playoff content. They got guys that can really get them to the playoffs. But I am not sure what I see from there. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys. If they are healthy, they are a playoff team. I don't know how I cannot say that any longer. They should be a playoff team. Everybody knows that. You have Dak Prescott and everything. You drafted Micah Parsons to actually boost their defense, and they really did well improving the defense. So it's not theirs to lose. I mean, seriously. Next up, Miami Dolphins. They absolutely improved on offense. Absolutely. They're not there yet, but from what I see, Miami should make the playoffs of what they have absolutely in them. Next up, Los Angeles Rams. Playoff team, absolutely. They're winning the division, no doubt about that in my mind. With one of the best defenses, and then upgrading Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford, I think is going to make the Rams a playoff team, and it's going to be a very hard team to beat. They could be, that division is very tough, but I think the Rams are really tough competition. It's really going to just depend on where things go. Next up, we have the Oakland Raiders. Not going to say few wins because they always start out well, and then they fall apart at the very end. So I'm just going to put them right in the middle. Nothing about that in my mind. Next up, Cleveland Browns. They are the second team in my mind that is a Super Bowl contender. They have the roster. They have the people. It all depends on if Baker Mayfield becomes a star quarterback. That's a team that can really compete for a Super Bowl. Next up, New York Giants. Their offense absolutely improved. I mean, you can't not doubt that in my mind. But I don't know if they're quite ready yet. Their defense needs work. I still think they're a middle of the pack, but it really depends on how their team does and if they actually make the plays that they need to. Next up, Denver Broncos. This is a team that just gets a few wins. They are still, if Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater struggle, it's going to be hard to watch them play. That's just how it works. Next up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you win the Super Bowl last year, you're a contender for sure. I don't really need to say much about it. They are the favorites probably to win it, and my choice to probably win it next year. I don't see how they won't repeat with the roster that they have. They get everybody back, and they did it exactly what they needed to. Next up, Detroit Lions. This is one of the first teams that I'm going to put going under 0-16. Their roster is absolutely awful. They don't have a defense. Their offense got even worse. It's going to be hard to watch the Lions, and they could get a few wins, but I just don't know how the Lions will even survive this year. This is just going to be a very tough year for them. Next up, Jacksonville Jaguars. They are going to improve, absolutely. They're going to get some wins. I definitely see it, but they're not in the middle of the pack quite yet. If Trevor Lawrence ends up being phenomenal, then maybe that will change, but it's going to be really hard to go 1-15 and then try to jump into the playoffs the very next year. It takes years to rebuild. Obviously, out of all the teams, the Jaguars had the best offseason, but they still need work. Washington football team. I don't know if they really downgraded by getting Ryan Fitzpatrick, but yeah, I get it. They're trying to rebuild. But still, they're in the middle of the pack. Why? Because their defense is one of the best in the league. You can't not deny that. Minnesota Vikings. Of course, the Minnesota Vikings are one of those teams that has a star-studded offense. I could see them even making the playoffs, but the problem is their defense going to be reliable, or is it going to fall apart like last year? Don't know. So they're right now in the middle of the pack. Don't know what to say about them, but I think they have a playoff material offense. I know Kirk Cousins is not the greatest quarterback, but they have a playoff offense in my eyes. Next up, Kansas City Chiefs. Absolutely, they're a Super Bowl contender. You can't not say that about the Kansas City Chiefs, who made 2 consecutive Super Bowls, won one, lost one. It's all up to Patrick Mahomes that he can continue everything. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and, Patrick Mahomes is a god. You can't not deny that. Next up, Baltimore Ravens. They did some good things. They got Sammy Watkins and drafted Rashad Bateman. They got some receivers that he can finally throw to that I think are going to be definite wins. Do I see that they're going to... Do I think that they can win the Super Bowl? Really, I don't think so because of what we've seen from Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. I still don't think he's ready, just personally. Next up, Carolina Panthers. Christian McCaffrey, another unbelievable year wasted. They'll get a few wins. It's just going to be hard to watch them, but you know what? I think maybe Sam Darnold will improve there. I think he's going to be better than he was on the Jets. It depends, but we'll see how that works. Next up, Tennessee Titans. They're a playoff team. They're easily win the division by a mile. With injuries with the Colts and then the Texans and the Jaguars just sucking, it's going to be Tennessee winning the division by a mile. Next up, Texans. Deshaun Watson, I don't even think he's going to play this year at all. I don't even know how the Texans will even win a game at that point. That's just going to be a very tough season for Texans, and then they're going to be drafting a quarterback for the very first pick. And finally, the Green Bay Packers. Of course, the Green Bay Packers, super close last year, but of course they had to... This is the last chance they're really ever going to get, and then Rodgers will probably leave or retire, and it's going to be done. That's why they're calling it the last dance. So, of course, I cannot... It's theirs for the taking. They are a Super Bowl contender. They have a top offense. It's going to be hard to beat the Packers with an offense that unbelievable. And that's that. So, this is what I see, and this is how I think teams will be this year. You know, teams will improve. Some teams will stay the same. Some teams will be high-octane teams. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's 12 teams. So 2 more teams are going to have to make the playoffs, of course. So 1 from the AFC and 1 from the NFC. I can't seem to sit it, but regardless, I can't really tell. All these teams, I think it's going to be a bloodbath, but who knows. But anyways, that's my thoughts. So if you like what I see, subscribe below, comment with your thoughts, and as always, I'll just say it because I'm a huge Packers fan. Go Pack Go. Anyways, we will see you next time.